Stitch Cuties, I'm Brittany with Stitches of Love Quilting, and we are going to make block 2 of your Garden Moments quilt in this video today. So this is specifically the tutorial for using your embroidery machine to make this block. So what we're gonna do first is get started on prepping our pieces and getting everything out of our box. Now, Garden Moments Block 2 has 2 embroidery files. That's because we are going to position our fusible batting and our fabric in the hoop with our Sulky Tear Easy stabilizer. We're going to stitch part of the design. Then we are going to re-hoop using little X's that serve as our positioning guides. And then the second file is going to be used with the Sulky Sticky Tear Easy stabilizer, because the sticky stabilizer really helps you make sure that you get that rehooping in the right place and that it stays there so you have the most accurate rehooping possible. So in your kit, you have all your pre-fused laser cut applique pieces. In just a moment, I'm going to give you a tip on how to label these. This block has 63 pieces in it, so I really do encourage you to number your applique pieces, and we're going to draw some arrows and give ourselves some guides on the back of those pieces. Now your kit also has your Lori Holt. These are the cross stitches is what it's called, in cottage blue. It's just a really nice fabric with little X's all over it. That's the background this month. So this is already cut basically to the size you need. You can trim it down a little bit if you want to, but I would just press it with some starch and you're ready to go. You can trim it after you do all of your embroidery work in the hoop, okay? And then also, not included in your kit, you're gonna wanna cut a piece of fusible batting, and you wanna be very accurate when you're cutting it. And I'm gonna be very careful not to handle it very much, because batting, if you push and pull on it, can distort. And I want to keep mine at the perfect 7 by 15 inch rectangle, so that it's not going to bleed into my seam allowances in my embroidery hoop, which will make sense when we begin stitching. So that's the prep work we have thus far. Now I want to show you, when we go to our pattern, how we're going to use the reverse applique pieces that come in your kit to guide identifying what pieces they are. Specifically, why I'm doing that is because you have a whole bunch of flowers. They're all exactly the same flower. However, what we're gonna do is mark arrows on them so we know which way is up. So that way, as we're putting it in our embroidery hoop, you don't do that little thing where you turn it sideways, sideways, sideways until you get it in the right spot. So drawing the arrows really helps. And we're gonna go on and do that with our leaves as well, because there's a bunch of leaves. Then when it gets to like the garden tools, a lot of these pieces are very easy to tell apart, but we might as well go on and number all of them. So let's switch our camera view over. And now what we're gonna do in our pattern, so you have all of your written instructions very clearly. Again, we've bolded it where we remind you that you have 2 files and you're gonna be doing your repositioning. So all of the first page and a half or so of instructions is all about making the first hooping of your project. And then when you turn over 1, you can see we're going to re-hoop. So I highly encourage you to watch the video while you're stitching, and we can stitch along together. It really is so simple. Don't be scared of re-hooping. I promise, promise, promise. It's easy. Now at the back of your pattern, you have your reverse applique pieces, and how I've laid out this pattern is where what we send to the laser matches what we give to you. Right? So you can see we have 4 by 4, it's gonna match. So all we're gonna do, and when you're working with your reverse applique pieces, you're always gonna lay the fusible side up. And so you're seeing the paper backing of your laser cut pieces. And that is because, of course, these are the reversed pieces. So what we're gonna do is just make sure we have our square oriented the right direction. So see, that first flower is a perfect fit, second flower. So I know that I have this turned the right direction. Now what I'm gonna do, so I know that my square goes this way, I'm gonna take a micron pen. You can also take like a thin Sharpie, a mechanical pencil, a regular ballpoint pen. We're just gonna mark the numbers, and we're gonna draw an arrow. When I laid this out on the page for you, the top is at the top. So what I'm gonna do first is draw an arrow pointing up on every single flower. And trust me, when we go to work with 63 pieces in our hoop, having this arrow is such a helpful trick. This applies, by the way, not just to this block. Take this trick and use it on any project that you do. Now, applique pieces, when they're reversed like this, in our patterns, in some patterns by other designers, aren't necessarily always facing the upward direction. For this, I specifically did. But you can always check yourself by using your full-size placement guide. You could simply flip the thing over and know that you're numbering them and drawing the arrow the right way. Okay, so now that I have the arrows, I'm gonna do my numbers. So quickly, 8, 10, 12, 23, 25, 27, 31, 33, 40, 42, 44, 48, 50, 56, 58, and 60. So now I have all of these ready to go. I'll snip them. All you have to do is take your Karen K. Buckley scissors. I love these scissors. And just snip them free. And that way you have all of these numbered and they're gonna be ready to go. Now I'm gonna do it with my leaves as well. So let's just find my leaves and we're gonna turn it the right direction. There's more on the top than there are on the bottom. So it's easy to line up and know that you have them, just so. So I'm gonna draw 5. Now I'm not gonna draw arrows on these because I turned the leaves, right? So there's no need to draw the arrow on this. It's very easy to identify which way these go in place, but I am gonna number them because there's so many and they're not all exactly alike. There's a couple here and there that are alike. I honestly don't even remember which ones they are. Like I think maybe these two are reverses of each other, things like that. But again, numbering makes life so easy. Now when we come over here to our charcoal, we know that this is number 62, and we have 18 and 17 for our bumblebee. Now we have our brown garden tools. We are gonna lay this over where it goes, just like so. And we have 1, 52, 35, 19, and 39. And we're gonna proceed on to our little pieces. Now, when it comes to these circles, they are all exactly the same. If you want to number them, you can. I'm going to just because it's sort of, when I'm making my pile of my pieces, which we'll do after I snip them free, it is just a way of telling me that I have every piece in my pile in numerical order. So let's go on and keep numbering these. And a lot of months, I don't actually number my pieces and go through this step because there's just not as many pieces and I can visually put them in the right order. However, with this, there's so many pieces that I think it's the added value of doing it is worth it. Alrighty. And now we have our little yellow bumblebee. So that's number 16. We have her little wings. I'm gonna make it a girl butterfly. 14, 15. We have this one little lone piece, number 63. A piece of our garden tool, number 3. And then we're gonna turn these the right way and we know that we have 4, 20, 36, and 53. So now I have all of my pieces labeled and I'm going to pause the camera and snip them all free. I'll just show you how I do it. Simply take your Karen K. Buckley scissors. They're sharp all the way to the tip and you will just snip your piece free. Snip. And then just get them all free like so. And then we'll be back in a moment to organize them into piles for our first embroidery file. So now we're gonna go to our pattern and we're going to look at the steps where we are ironing our pieces onto our fabric. So first step where we're actually ironing onto our fabric is going to be step 10. So we are going to put our pieces in numerical order. So we are gonna have 1, 2, 14. Let's see, and I have them just willy-nilly scattered out in front of me. Probably not the smartest idea, but it's what I did. Oh, it's a bumblebee leaf. Not a leaf, a bumblebee wing. So now number 14, number 15, the other wing, number 29, which is a leaf. And then we have 35. Let's see what 35 is. Oh, it's part of the handle. And now 39 and 46. Here's 46, but I need 39 first. Is it right in front of me? Oh, right here, part of my handle. 39 and then 46. So I have this in numerical order from top to bottom, and I know it's one pile for my outlines that are being stitched. Now we're gonna go to step 12, and we need number 3, 4, and then 6, 7, 8. Here's 6, 7, and where is 8? Oh, a flower. Number 8. And now we're doing 16, 30, and 31. So 16. Oh, the little bumblebee. And now we have 30 and 31. Now you could lay these out in a numerical order. It would make sense, maybe a little bit more. So here's 30 is a leaf, 31 is a flower. Now 36, 37, 38. So here's 37, 38, and we need a 36. Oh, a little leaf or a stem. 36, 37, 38. And now we need 40, 47, and 48. Here's 48. And we need a 47. Where is it? Right in front of me. Oh, wait, 47, 48. Oh, we need number 40. Oh, a flower. So we're going to have 40, 47, and 48. So this is a pile in numerical order for our next step in ironing our applique units on. Now that was 12, we're gonna go to 14. So we need number 5. Number 9 is a flower center. 10. 10 is a flower. And now we need 12, 17, and 18. So let's see, where are those? Right in front of me. 12. And then 17 and 18. Do you see them right in front of me? Are they right in front of me? You can always look on your replacement guide to see what they are. So 12 is a flower. Do I already have it? I have 12 in my hand, just kidding. And now 17 is... Oh, the stripes. Where did those go? I bet I didn't cut them off my piece, did I? Look at that, y'all. I didn't finish cutting them. Look at that. I still had them in here. That's why I couldn't find them. See, this is another reason it's good to make your piles, because if you accidentally throw your stuff away, you'd be missing 2 pieces. So now I have 17 and 18. Then we're doing 32, 33. So here's 33. 32 is what? It's probably not very fun to watch me do this, but this is just how I put my pieces out. 32 is a flower center. Oh, right here, 32, 33, and then we have 41, 42. Here's 41, 42, and then 44, 49, and 50. 44, 49, and what is 50? Oh, another flower. So now in numerical order, we have all the pieces for step 14. So we're gonna set these over here. It just really helps when you have this many pieces to get this organized, because I want you to be able to focus on repositioning in the hoop and not worry about anything else. So now we're on step 16. So we have number 11, which is a flower center. 13 is another flower center. Then we have number 34, which is a flower center. We have 43, 45, and 51. So basically this step, we're ironing a little pile of flower centers on. And we're gonna put those in our little pile to the side. And now that's everything you need for the first positioning of your hoop. So then what you're gonna do in your hoop, and we'll do this in the video, after this, your machine is gonna do all of your buttonhole stitching. Now when we turn the page, we now are going to reposition our hoop, load file 2, and we, after all that is done, we are going to skip down to number 32, step 32, and we need pieces 19, 52, and 62. So 3 big pieces to work with. So I'm gonna make a separate pile for my second hooping. Then we'll jump on to the next page, step 34, and we need pieces 20 through 23. So 20, 21, and where's 22 right in front of me? 22, and 23 is a flower. Now we need 53 through 56. So 53, 54, 55, and 56. So again, on the second rehooping, we're building the remaining part of our 2 garden tools. Now, and number 63. I didn't put that in the pile, but that goes on the very bottom of this pile. So through 63 right there. Now we're going to go to number 36, and we need 24, 25, 27, 57, 58, and 60. And then these 4 little remaining pieces, you guessed it, are going to be our final step in terms of placing all of our applique pieces into the hoop, or if you will, building our applique units in the hoop. So now we have 8 piles in total, and I'm going to keep them organized. And now what I'm going to do that I have them organized, I'm going to go back to the beginning of my pattern. And here, I'll switch to here. So what we're gonna do now is go over to our embroidery machine. We are gonna load file 1 of Garden Moments block 2. Make sure you load the right file. So you wanna do it in the right order. Because the first file we're doing, the second file is going to build on top of that. So you wanna make sure you start with file 1. And what you need to have ready, of course, as I mentioned earlier in the video, you're gonna have your background fabric already starched and ready to go. You are going to have your fusible batting cut to that 7 inches by 15 inches. And then you are going to load the regular Sulky Tear Easy Stabilizer for this first hooping. And we're gonna start with a white thread in our machine because the machine is going to, after it gives us our outline, excuse me, of where we put our fusible batting in our fabric, it's then going to, the first step it's going to actually sew is going to be our quilting for that first hooping, and it's going to then start building out our applique outline so we can build our units. So I will see you over at the embroidery machine. Okay, so now at your embroidery machine, you have Garden Moments block 2 file 1 loaded on your machine with a white thread, and you can see we have our first outline stitched. Let me show you what that is. Can you see? This is going to guide where we're gonna put our fabric and for our first hooping and where we're gonna place our fusible batting. Now, let me just make sure I make it clear what this represents. See these 2 lines in your placement guide? So our first hooping is gonna be all the way to this second line. That's gonna be our first hooping. When we rehoop and use file 2 later on in this video, it's going to represent all the way to the left line. That's our second hooping. Okay, so that's what these lines are right here. First hooping, second hooping. And what I've marked, and I keep this out where I can see it while I'm doing this one. So I actually just pin it up on the side. So see this little notch right here and this little notch right here? This represents the center of your project. So if you just fold your fusible batting in half, and you put it up to the inside line, so this inner line, you can see when it's folded in half, it's gonna come straight up to that center line, and it's right up to the edge here, see that? Of the inner stitched line. So we have this in place. Now with our fabric, what I've done is I folded it in half, and I didn't trim my fabric down, so my selvage is still there. So I folded in half, but not to the selvage. I folded in half before the selvage. And what I'm gonna do is put my fold at this center line, right? So remember, this little notch right here on the top and bottom means center. And you can see I have more than enough fabric going past this outer line on the top and bottom. A little bit more on the top, so I am gonna pull it down just a little. There we go. And what I'm gonna do is unfold this. Now we're gonna trim this outer fabric at the end by a lot, but what you want most importantly is to have it centered, and you want most importantly for this fusible batting to be inside this inner line, right? So this right here is your seam allowance. So at the end of this project, when you sew it all together, you're not gonna have batting in your seam allowance and it's gonna lay perfectly flat. So now that we have this in position, what we're gonna do while holding it, we're going to fuse our fabric to our fusible batting. So when I put that down in the hoop, by the way, I put fusible side up, meaning the back side of my fabric is meeting with the fusible side of my fusible batting. So again, I'm holding my hand so that I don't move this, and I'm ironing and fusing those together. Now I'm gonna put tape in place, and we are gonna tape this. There we go. And I'm gonna put a few pieces of tape. Doesn't hurt. All right, and then I'm gonna do some across the top. There we go. And what your machine is gonna stitch next with your white thread, it's going to stitch that outer line again, because that's gonna ultimately be a trim line for us. It's gonna give us our X's, which are ultimately gonna be used to line up when we reposition with our second file. Our machine is also going to do quilting on this section of the project, and it's gonna give us our first round of applique outlines. So when you take this on and off the hoop, you do have extra fabric hanging. If you can see you're gonna have extra fabric, just be cognizant of that. It won't cause any issues. Your hoop, the arm of your hoop is all the way over here. This is gonna hang off the end onto your table. Just make sure it doesn't get caught on anything. I've never had an issue with it catching on anything, so you'll be just fine. So we're gonna put this back on our machine with the white thread and continue on. Okay, so take a look. You have some beautiful quilting done. It's a fun classic meander. You can see that you have your X's. These are going to be used as a guide when we reposition. And we also have our first round of applique outlines. So if you remember, just before this, we organized all our pieces. We are gonna put them on in numerical order. So right now, we are on to step 10 of our pattern, ironing our pieces in place. So we are gonna make sure that they're perfectly aligned. Then we'll take our iron and iron them in place. So first up, piece number 1. Now the end of our shovel. And again, you can use the lines to guide you, of course, and we'll iron them right in place. I love the shovel. This is a gray shade from Riley Blake turned inside out to give the perfect gray. That's Mom's favorite gray, is to turn it inside out like that. Now we're gonna do pieces 14 and 15 of our little bumblebee wings. So we're gonna put number 14 down. And if you wanna get your little 4-in-1 tool to hold this in place, it might be a good idea so you don't burn your fingers. I think I'll get mine. It's a little Alex Anderson tool, and I use it to make sure that I'm not burning my fingers. So once I get this in place, you can open it up and use the stiletto as well, but it just helps you hold it in place without burning your fingers. Now we have a leaf, and it goes right here. Yes, number 29. So you just want to make sure you turn it, again, the right direction. It'll be a perfect fit in the lines. Now we're coming down to the second tool, and we'll start building the handle here. Now with a long piece like this that has a cutout, you want to line that up and make sure it's lined up all the way down. Hold it in place, and we'll just work our way over, getting it perfectly lined up. And then our next piece right here. I forgot the name of this fabric. Oh, I just can never remember the name of this texture, but it's such a fun print. It looks so good, especially for these garden tools. Now I just noticed I'm not perfectly lined up here. If you ever have that happen, just heat your project and you can wiggle your piece right into place. There you go, so handy. Fun little trick. And then finally on this step, we have one final leaf to put in place. There we go. So now we're gonna continue with our white thread on our machine, and our machine is going to stitch our next round of applique outlines. And a reminder, just keep this extra little fabric hanging out at the end of your hoop. I just kind of rolled mine up, but make sure you don't flop it onto your hoop. You don't accidentally sew over it. All right, here we go. Okay, so now we have our next round of applique outlines. There's a lot to look at, so you can always take your placement guide and have it right in front of you to reference where your pieces go. So I'm gonna keep mine just in front of me where I can see it. Unfortunately, you can't see it on the camera, but you'll have yours. So first up, we're gonna put piece number 3 and line that up just right. Next, we will put piece number 4, which is our little stem. Put that right in place. Again, you may want to have your little 4-in-1 tool out to hold this in place without burning your finger. Now we're going to put our leaves on, number 6 and 7. So 6 is the one off to the side a little bit. There we go, right in place. And then number 7, such a cute fabric. It's got little sewing machines, or I'm sorry, little scissors on it. It's super cute. And get that right in place. Now we're gonna do our first flower, which is number 8. And you can see number 8 is this flower right here. I still have my paper backing on with my arrow up. Simply gonna flip it over where it's still pointing up. Press down on the fabric flower and it releases the backing, but I keep my flower perfectly in place so I don't have to twist it around and figure out which petal goes where. Love this little trick of drawing an arrow. Next we have piece number 16, our bumblebee body. So we'll put this right in place. Get my little handy dandy tool. There we go. Now we are on to piece 30, which is a leaf right here. And so peel the paper backing off, put it right in place. And our next piece after this is going to be another flower. So we're building this flower unit right here. So again, I have my little arrow, flip it directly over, and then I know exactly where it goes. Easy peasy. What's next? Number 36. So now we're coming down to the bottom part of the tool. So let me get my applique piece, number 36. Peel the paper backing. There we go. And again, on a curved piece, make sure you have it all the way in place as you work your way around and iron it. And if you need to scooch it just a little while it's still hot, you can, and then give it a quick press. Now we have our two leaves, number 37 and 38. So it's our left leaf first. There we go. And then number 38. Look at how that felt. You see the full scissor. It's always fun to see how it falls. You never know what piece of fabric you'll get. And then number 38. Now we're at another flower, number 40. So it's this flower right here. Again, take our arrow pointing up, flip it over. And right in place. And now we have a leaf number 47 down here. And then after that, we'll iron on the final flower for this step. And when we put our machine back on, of course, it's gonna give us our next round of applique outlines. So this step that we're doing right now is number 12. So arrow up, flip it immediately over, and voila. Perfect fit. There we go. Give it a press. And I'll move my placement guide out of the way because I had it sitting on my machine. Keep that white thread on, and let's continue to the next step. Okay, so we have our next round of applique outlines. I'm gonna put my placement guide in front of me to help me align everything just right. And we'll start at the beginning with piece number 5. Put it right in place, like so. And actually, I think I have turned that. No, I had it turned the right way. Let's just double check. Oh, I did not have it turned the right way. Now it is. Now it'll be happy. So iron that. Now we have number 9, a little flower center over here. Put that right in place. Give it a press. Now number 10, you know the drill with the flowers. Arrow up. Flip it over. Put it right in place. And then iron it down. I love it. Isn't this starting to look so pretty? I think this quilt is just so pretty, and this block is really fun, I think, to make. I've been looking forward to it, I must say. So in some months, you're gonna have a ton of pieces. Like this one has 63 pieces. Some months you don't have as many pieces, you get a little break. Next month, we make another bird facing the opposite way as we did last month. I think super cute. Now we're gonna come up to our bumblebee and do our 2 bumblebee stripes. Number 17 and 18. I'm gonna see if I can put both in place at one time. So the top and bottom line up perfectly with your little yellow body of your bumblebee. And then just take your paper backing off. And this little guy right in place and go straight down. There we go. Now number 32, we have a flower center just below the bumblebee. Oh my gosh, isn't this pretty? I'm very excited. I can't wait to see the buttonhole stitching starting. And I also can't wait to see after we reposition it and stitch everything, how good this block is gonna look, especially when you trim it down, get all this excess fabric away, you really get to see it. It's gonna look so good. There we go. Now we're gonna jump down here to the bottom tool. Piece number 41 is a flower center right here. And then we have 2 flowers to put on. We have number 42, which is the left flower of this little trio. There we go. And if you want to wiggle it, like I want to wiggle it just a little, just take your little tool while it's still hot. There we go. And now number 44, right in place. There we go. So cute. Now we just have 2 more pieces to put on. We have a flower center down here, number 49, and then our flower number 50. We'll continue on for one more step with the white thread. And all that's gonna stitch for the next round of applique outlines, I believe, is just our flower centers. And there we go. All right, so let's keep that white thread on our machine, put this back on, and continue to the next step. Okay, so now we're ready for that final round of just putting in our flower centers. Now all your flower centers are exactly the same, so this is super easy. I'm just gonna lay a few out in their circle, and then I'm gonna be brave and iron them all at once. So I'll get all of them in place. You can go one by one. Don't feel the need to like rush through this by any means. You want it to be right. And just a little flower center there and here. So now I'm gonna simply take my iron, go directly above it, and directly above these. There we go. Take a look at them. All of them stayed in place. Perfect. So now for the remaining steps of this file 1 for block 2, I'm going to take my hoop on and off the machine as I change my thread color so we can discuss what's stitching. However, for you at your embroidery machine, at your sewing space, you do not need to take your hoop on and off anymore during the color changes, okay? So what I'm gonna load next is my 1056 medium tawny tan, and we are on step 17 of our pattern. And the machine is going to stitch the buttonhole stitch on our brown pieces. All right, let's take a look at your perfect stitches in the medium tawny tan. It looks fantastic. Now we are going to change to the silver gray on step 18, and you're going to have this cute little garden tool stitched at the end of it. Alrighty, now the little end of your shovel is stitched. It looks so good, I just love it. Now we're going to put on our butterfly gold, step 19, and our machine is gonna stitch our cute little bumblebee. Okay, so now your cute little bumblebee and the accent on your shovel are now stitched with the yellow. Now we're going to put on our avocado, step 20, and all of your leaves and stems are gonna be stitched along with the accent lines on the insides of your leaves. Take a look at how good all your leaves and stems look. I love it. So now we are going to load the 1256 sweet pink, and your machine is going to do a cute little buttonhole stitch along the outside of all of your light pink flowers. Alrighty, take a look at those perfectly stitched flowers. Now we are going to load 1307 for step 22, and all of the flower centers will be buttonhole stitched. And now all of your flower centers are stitched. So we have just 2 more colors remaining to finish off our bumblebee. So we are going to load our 1292, and the cute little bit of wings is going to be stitched on your little bumblebee. Okay, look at our little bumblebee wings. They're so cute. Now our last color on this file one is black 1005, and the machine will do a cute little stitch on your bumblebee stripes. Okay, so now everything for the file 1 of block 2 is completely stitched. So now it's time to rehoop. I want to remind you that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 X's. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna rehoop. I'm gonna grab my pin cushion because I want some pins. That's gonna help me reposition. When we take this out of our hoop, we're not gonna remove the stabilizer. And the reason is because we're gonna pick it all out at the end. And 2, removing the stabilizer, even though it tears away easily and doesn't distort your stitches, it could ever so slightly, because I put these X's in, the repositioning marks. They're a really loose stitch. I don't want them to be pulled at all. So you're gonna remove all your stabilizer at the very end. So I'm just removing my tape. And now I'm taking my project out. So what I have is all the stabilizer, I have the stitched part, and then of course I have all this loosey-goosey stuff hanging. The only thing I am gonna do when I'm repositioning this on the thing, I'm gonna just cut my stabilizer right here where I don't have stitching. That's just gonna help me when I'm lining up my fusible batting. So I am just gonna take that off, that's it. Toss it in the trash. Now in our hoop, I'm gonna set this aside. In our hoop, I'm gonna take my sticky Tear Easy stabilizer. So now we're using sticky, sticky, sticky. And I am going to put it in the hoop. So roll it out. Know my length. There we go. There we go. Take the tape that came with it and I just tape it back so it stores nicely on the side of my table. And you're going to put this in your hoop, and then what we'll do, we want to put the sticky side up. Yes. Always have to think about that. You know what Sulky does though? It says hoop this side up. It's always nice. Give us a little reminder. Okay, so I have it covering my hoop. Take your hoop, and I may need to loosen my hoop a little. There we go. Look at that. So I have it on top of my Steady Betty because that gives me a nice pressing surface. You can see I have a lot of tape on my hoop from other projects. Just gonna tidy that up a minute. I should take it off better every time, but I don't always do that. So let's just do that real fast now. Well, that one's just not gonna come up. There we go. So now what we're gonna do, I have one more piece, goodness gracious. What did I do with all that tape? Okay, so now I have this nice and tight in my hoop. You wanna pull so it's nice and snug. And I'm just gonna tighten my hoop all the way. And now you can just take a pin or your scissors and we're just gonna score along the edge. And this is gonna give us a little area where we can pull this out. So nice, right? Just tear this right out. There we go. And I have a little bit more. So now what we're gonna do, we're not gonna hoop anything yet. We're gonna load our white thread in the machine. And with this white thread, and now we're loading Garden Moments Block 2, File 2. And so it's gonna stitch the right side of our project. The first thing our machine is gonna stitch though, is our X's, so we know where to line this up. So load your white thread, your embroidery file 2, and let's get going. Okay, so what you have now is your outline for where you're gonna put everything, and you have your 6 X's. So what we're gonna do is what some would call the most challenging part, but I promise it's not hard. So I'm gonna start by getting a general idea of where this is gonna go, right in here. And I'm gonna take my pin and I'm gonna go directly through the X on my fabric. And right behind here, I'm just gonna hold my hoop up. And I am going to go straight through the center of the X on my hoop. And I'm just kind of hanging things. See how I'm just kind of hanging it? And then I'm gonna take my X over here and I'm gonna go right through the center. Let's take a look. It's lining up pretty nice. But we have several more to go. So now, because see, it'll kind of wiggle. And this, I will say, is the hardest part because you have to keep everything in place, but you also don't want it to stick too much because you need to be able to wiggle it a little bit. So I'm gonna go through right here. And now I am gonna lay it down. I will tell you, this is the part where it's like you just kind of move it around a bit. And it's just the process of getting it hooped perfectly. So I'm going through the X and straight through the X here. Make sure none of these other ones are wiggling. And now take another pin. We're gonna go to another X, go through the fabric and then straight through the X here. Now let's go to this center one, and I'm just kind of propping it on my, well, honestly, I'm propping it on my chest. And then straight through the X here. All right, we have, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have one more over here in the left corner and straight through the center of that. So now you have them all, and I'm holding it in the air, it's not touching anything. So I know that all of my pins are perfectly straight. And now I feel confident that I can start pushing it down in place. Before I push it all the way though, we're gonna take this and we're gonna take a look at how this is doing. And you're just sort of gonna wiggle. Now I know in my first hooping, I don't know if you noticed, but my stabilizers or my fusible sort of went up a little bit. See how my seam allowance got smaller? That was my fault in my hooping, and I just continued for the video tutorial, which I shouldn't have. I should have fixed it. But now I'm just, because batting is forgiving, I just sort of am stretching it where I need it to go. So I'm gonna make sure, again, all my pins are where they need to be. And I check this process quite a bit. And now I feel good to start smoothing this down. There we go. And all my pins are staying in place. See how they are like straight up? And I'm holding it, it's not laying flat. There we go. Everything is in place. So now what we can do is pin it. And as I lay it down flat, you'll see my pins are gonna come up. There we go. And I'm pressing everything in place. Now, you'll notice that the next step is the X's stitched again. And that's because before we move on past this repositioning, I want to double check myself. So the X's are going to stitch again, and hopefully they're going to line up right on top of themselves. If they don't, all you do is simply remove your original piece, rehoop your stabilizer and put it in place again. That's it. You just start the few steps over again to rehoop. So I'm gonna put some tape still, even though it's the sticky. I just wanna make sure everything's gonna stay where it belongs. And now I'm gonna remove my pins because it's stuck down and I have that extra tape. All right, ooh, I dropped a pin. And now with the white thread on your machine, like I said, we are going to move to the next step, which is going to confirm that you have everything in the right spot. So cross your fingers that you hooped it right, because it's gonna be so exciting when we get to start stitching the second half. Okay, here we go, y'all. Take a look at where the next X is stitched on top. Look how good they are lining up. I have to say, I don't think I could reposition any closer to what we have here. So if I check all of my X's, the ones I really care about are the ones on this side, right? Because this is where my stitching is gonna be. So these three are, I mean, this one is 100% spot on. This one is maybe 1 needle length off, not gonna affect anything. Same with this one, not even really a needle length. Center one, spot on. Right over here, I would say maybe 1 needle length away, pretty much spot on. And then this one down here is, I'll show you, it's almost 2 needle lengths away, but this is 1 out of 6 and 5 of them line up perfectly. And where I'm stitching is down here. So I'm not going to reposition because 5 out of 6 are just spot on pretty much. If you have these 3 right here not lining up and then this center one, what I would do is rehoop another piece of that sulky sticky, pull this up and stitch from the beginning again and reline up again. However, mine worked like a charm the first time. I'll tell you, I've done projects before where I do rehoop and I rehoop it a second time before I stitch. So the reason I do this is so that you can know before you move on that you have it perfect. That's why we did these extra set of stitches on top of the X's just to check ourselves. So once you have everything perfectly hooped, you're happy with it, we're gonna continue with that white thread, and our machine is gonna give us our first round of applique pieces over here, and it's going to do our quilting, just like the beginning steps of our left file. Okay, so now we have our first round of applique outlines on the second side. So if you take a look at your placement guide in step 32, we're gonna put on pieces 19, 52, and 62. So simply put this right in place. Again, when you have a handle like that, make sure it's good and in place and then start pressing. There we go, and work our way down. And now you have this piece right here, and I give you some wiggles down here. To me, that just helped line it up a little more. I know that's kind of silly, but to me, it helped. So give that a press, and now we have the little, what do you call the ends of a rake? The legs of a rake? I don't know. I think maybe we can tell I don't do a ton of gardening, do I? So when you lay this down, look how nicely that is laying in position. I'm gonna take my iron and ever so carefully go straight down on top of it. Now get your little tool out and just inspect if anything needs wiggled. And by golly gee, mine looks really good, so that's great. I don't need to adjust anything. So now we're gonna continue on, put our white thread back on, and continue with our next round of applique outlines. Okay, so now it's time to iron our pieces in place. So we start with piece number 20, and again, you can just have your placement guide handy. So piece number 20 right up here. Are you so excited about this? I am. I can't wait till we get to the steps of doing all the cute thread color changes, because I really want to see this block all stitched out. It looks so good as it comes to life. So now leaf number 21 is our left leaf right here. And now number 22. There we go. Make sure you turn them the right way. Perfect. Next up is number 23. So again, take your arrow pointing up, flip it immediately over, and then you don't have to worry about which direction your flower goes. There we go. Perfect. And this is one of the pieces that really starts to marry our two files together. So it's just going to ever so slightly come onto your brown. And now we have piece number 53. So we're moving down to the bottom tool. And there we go. Put your little stem in place. Wiggle it if you need to. Then number 54 is the left leaf. Just right here. There we go. And now number 55. Right here. And number 56 is our flower down here. So again, arrow pointing up, flip it over. I love those arrows. Easiest little trick to make your life so easy. And right in place. And now the last piece in this particular step, which is step 34, is to iron on piece number 63. And this is a perfect little piece. So there is no top or bottom. And just lay it down and give it a press. So now we'll continue with the white thread on our machine and we'll get our next round of applique outline stitched. Okay, so now we're ready for our next round of ironing, which is step number 36. So let's get our pieces in place, starting with number 24, our little flower center right up here at the top. Now we have two flowers, number 25. I'll bring my placement guide back out, put my arrow up and flip it over. So number 25. So cute, you guys, I can't wait. And now 27. Perfect. There we go. And I want to wiggle it just a little. There we go. Now we're doing number 57, which is our flower center down here on the bottom. Put that right in place. And now we just have two more flowers. So we have number 58, which is the left flower. Boop, right in place right here. This is the one that bridges between the two files here. So it's connecting the two pieces. So you can't tell that that's not one big brown piece underneath that. Pretty cool. And then number 60. Right in place here. And now we'll continue with our white thread for one more step. And the machine is going to stitch all of our flower centers for the last step of applique outlines. Alrighty, so now we just have 4 flower centers to put in place. So just like I did on the first file, I'm going to be brave and put them all in place at one time and then iron them down. There we go. And a flower center here. And here. Oh my gosh, you guys, we did it. We repositioned. So much fun. So easy, right? That's why I gave lots of those X's. I want y'all to be able to be perfect. So take a look. Now we're ready to do all of our buttonhole stitching on this side, and then our block is going to be totally complete. So good looking. So now for the remaining steps, I'm going to take my hoop on and off, just like I did for the first file, to talk about the thread color changes. But for you at your embroidery machine, you do not need to take your hoop on and off for this. So we are going to load medium tawny tan, and the brown will be stitched. Okay, take a look at your brown stitching. It looks so good. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy. Now we're going to put 1177 on for step 40, and just like your leaves and stems were stitched over here, that's going to take place for the remaining leaves and stems on the right side of your project. So now all of your green is stitched. It looks so good. It's time to load the 1256 Sweet Pink so your machine can stitch your outer parts of your 3 flowers. Take a look at your perfect flowers. Oh my goodness, they look so good, don't they? So now we're going to load the 1307 Petal Pink so that your machine will stitch the remaining 6 flower centers. Now all of your flower centers are stitched and we only have 2 more colors to go. Next up is black so that all of your little rake pieces will be buttonhole stitched. Alrighty, so now your rake is stitched and it's time for our final color change to 1045 light teal for this very last accent piece on our garden tool. Congratulations, you completed block 2 of your garden moments. Take a look at all of your stitching, how beautiful it looks, and no one will ever know where you repositioned. Look at that. Do you even remember where it repositioned? It's flawless, isn't it? So now it's time to take it out of the hoop. It is gonna be a bit of a meticulous job to take out the stabilizer, but it's worth it, I promise. Before you do that, I do recommend that you just very carefully come down here and cut out your placement X's, because I don't want you to forget to take those out. So go on and remove all of those and get all of that taken out. So remember, there's 6 of them that you want to remove. There we go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where's the 6th one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. Make sure you take all of those out. And then when you go to trim, you are going to use your placement guide as a guide, and also keep in mind that you want to have as close to 1/4 inch seam allowance as possible. So if you need to adjust at all, these are your guidelines for where you want to trim, but you can also adjust just a little bit. Like for me, I got my stabilizer, or I'm sorry, my fusible on the first project, the first file, it goes up a little bit right here. So when I trim, I might actually go just a hair above my line here and then do my 7.5 inches down. So just make sure that you look at your seam allowance. Like here I stayed perfect, here I stayed perfect. So I might just fudge a little bit on the top and bottom as I trim it. So I hope that you enjoyed this project. I can't wait for next month. We're making just like block 1, but it's the bird facing the opposite way. It's a nice easy one compared to this. This was our first repositioning in this project. In the Garden Moments quilt you're gonna have in just a few more months, you're gonna reposition when you do your beehive, and then when you do your garden lady, you're gonna reposition several times. So it's a really easy process. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and happy stitching.